Welcome to Slavic D, Slavic Drost YouTube channel. And this is a episode 3 of DoorDash. Please take a minute to read through the disclaimer and let's get started. So, I would like you guys to subscribe, like the video so other people can have a chance to see it, as well as share, because I don't do a lot of these videos, but when I do, some of these videos have so much of information and drivers, customers, as well as corporate of DoorDash and other gig uh, companies can would really need to actually pay attention and verify that information through their former sources. And I'm always also open to chat and have conversations since have that experience in the past as running a huge corporation, being a CEO, running with the board of directors, and I know what the company is going through and what the CEO is going through and management is going through to make things work and happen. So, in the first DoorDash episode, we covered the customer app, the customer website, and the fees, and I want to actually touch back on the fees so the customer can understand, because that's where everything starts. And as we move forward, we build on those things. And I want as customers as well as drivers to understand the fees, understand what's happening on the customer side, and also the customers understand what's happening on the driver side. So we have a $4 delivery fee. That $4 delivery fee is not the amount that we receive as drivers. That's the amount that the DoorDash charges, and then through their formulas, an algorithm, they break down and give us 225 as a base fee, and then they ask extra amount based on how long the trip is. Be honest, that part is still varies, and I kind of would wonder how is that varies, and would like to see DoorDash be open and say, "Hey, this is how we actually calculate," and show us actually the full formula of calculation. So there's also so that $4 per delivery also can be replaced with a monthly membership of $10. Um, there's also long distance fee that the DoorDash sometimes charges if the amount is small. I believe that's what it's called. And there's also app fees, which is 18% if you order from your phone, or 16% if you order from the website, based on my understanding and as I checked last. For some of you guys, yes, it might be strange why that big amount. And I'll actually go forward and actually try to touch base a little bit. A couple of years back, I tried to build a competition to Uber and Lyft app, which actually at the time I had the best app out of them available. Did run into a couple of situations where the developers that built my app, and I'm pretty sure DoorDash and all others out there have the same issue. Uh, they use pre-built engines for like pushing messages between drivers and a customer, as well as live update where the driver is at, and a few other things. All of those things do cost fees. And here's the message to DoorDash: with the amount of money that you guys are moving on a daily basis, I can actually guarantee you guys can hire the best available programmers in the world and build your own engines where you can save on those fees. So, and and pay all that off probably within 30, 60 days, the cost that will cost you to hire those developers to build those engines, and don't have to pay the third party for those fees. So that's the on the fee side. Now in DoorDash episode 2, I built a calculator of a vehicle expense, and I would highly recommend you guys go back. In that video, you guys will be able to find the download, the option to access that calculator. But here is a calculator of various different possibilities where you actually rent a vehicle, you lease the vehicle, as well as if you own the vehicle. And, and I kind of went through and explained uh, how to fill it out and how to calculate and get a true, real cost per mile on your vehicle. And again, message to DoorDash. I would like you guys to challenge me on that spreadsheet and tell me that there is a problem. Very simple thing is, as a CEO, in addition having company accountant, I had my own private accountant, where actually she did the books parallel to the company accountants, as well as verified company's accountants work. And I always got uh, company's version, and then I got my accountant version. And based on my information, I got both. I've been able to challenge my private accountant, and most of the time, she had numbers better than the corporate accounts had. And what made me good being in a CEO in that company is because I did not went off of false information based on mistakes. I had the information verified, and I went off of the information. And this, of course, if it became a question, well, I did my own research to get to the bottom of it, and then I made decision based on the most accurate information that I could have at that time. So, be honest, most accounts out there that are working on hourly, they're not going to put the best interest of yours and the companies. They're just doing their job, simply as that. So having somebody that you can trust, that actually can verify and run and care about first protecting you from making a mistake and then protecting the company can make a big difference. So that's why I went and I built this calculator, because I seen a lot of YouTubers out there that are making mistake when it comes down to calculate vehicle expense. I'll be honest, I have not seen a YouTuber yet that actually went in details to make a vehicle expense that would actually be very close to accurate. And this is one of the reasons why that episode 2 was created. So let's go to this episode. And the name of this episode, I named it, Is It Worth Driving for Base Pay and What Can Make It Worthwhile? So in this video, I will be covering, first of all, my history of how much I've been earning with DoorDash, uh, through a couple different various of calculations, as well as when I was not a top dasher, when I was a top dasher, and also um, what can be changed to entice drivers to take more orders, encourage them to take more orders instead of filtering, trying to pick up the best orders out there. So we're gonna go back to the September 19th, and you guys seen it in the previous video, this chart, but you guys have not seen the future things. Is I have added 3 more columns for a new way of calculating, and those calculations came out a little bit more accurate. But first, let's go and look at orders. So I marked any. So first column is date, time the order came in, store, the pickup of the food, the mileage that was during the offer came in, and also the pay. Then the time the food was delivered, how much was the base pay. There is a one other. Come on, I guess I'm not able to. Okay. Not sure. Resize column, I guess. Let's see if that works. Nope. Okay, I'm gonna go back and hide some of the. So base pay, there's sometime peak pay, so that would be in that column that's hidden, and then we have a round trip, and this is something I did not bring up. So let's map Google and kind of give you guys first understanding the area that I drive at. And here's the first thing with the corporate. You guys need to split Harrisburg and Danville in order to solve the problem of running short on drivers in Harrisburg. Just very simple as that. There between right here and about right here in this stretch, there is no restaurant whatsoever. But because there is more business in Danville, all drivers come down to Danville, and you guys end up having issue with Harrisburg. So to solve that problem, you guys split, have a separate schedule, and then you guys will have enough of the drivers there because they will not be moving into another area without actually logging out of that area to move into another area. Second, I do not drive to Harrisburg, and I do not accept any deliveries in Harrisburg and I will not because first of all, I have certain legal issues there that I'm not allowed to be in that area, and or I'm not willing to be in that area to be more accurate. And second, it's just not worth for me going to a place where I am not familiar with the area. So now, why we look at round trip in my area, we have couple restaurants, and I do apologize. This is just my personal map, as you guys can see. We have couple restaurants here. So we have a McDonald's here, a Subway here, and there's a restaurant here that I never picked up. It's a Mexican restaurant. I'm not sure it's even on a system. So that's about all the restaurants. In downtown area, we have a John's. Papa John's. We also have an ice cream place that we pick up. There's a restaurant place here in downtown area that we pick up. We need a red card, and that's about and a Subway, and that's about all the restaurants we have in downtown. Right here, we do have right there Lee's Famous Chicken, which I would consider that be part of the downtown area. And then as we come here, all the rest of the restaurants are starting from Taco Bell. And so we have Taco Bell, we have Little Caesars, we have Wendy's, which I don't pick up from Wendy's because corporate need to resolve the issue. Too long of a wait. Then we have quite a few restaurants here. McDonald's, you guys can see another restaurant here. We have a Katma Roadhouse, which app has an issue. It's always sent us here instead of here. We have another restaurant here. We have KFC here, Crackle Barrel here, and we have quite a few Applebee's, quite a few restaurants here on this side as well. So as you guys can see, if I pick up anything from this area right here, and anywhere I go here doesn't matter where I go to deliver, I always have to come back into this area. Sometime I'll pick up from downtown, but then when I don't get when I'm coming back through downtown and I don't get nothing. I always come into this area because this is where the most amount of restaurants are at. So that's why when you look at my calculations, I always take a round trip because let's say uh, I come back from McDonald's, I deliver to Junction City, I always come back into the area. So that's the reason why we have the round trip mileage. Then we have a cost. Again, any questions on the cost, you guys can go back. The prices of the gas went up. Right now is over 311 in my area. So the price went up on a vehicle expense. Uh, Net profit from DoorDash. So pretty much what I'm calculating DoorDash, I'm not calculating customer tip. I personally believe, and if you talk with a lot of people, they'll agree the same way. Says in the Bible, "What's in your left hand, right hand should not know about it." Which, or what the left hand does, right hand should not know about it. So, what I mean is, whatever a customer agrees to give me as a gratitude, it's mine and should never be calculated into corporate, calculated as corporate as my additional form of income or coverage of my personal business expense. That is between me and the customer and not between me and corporate and the customer. So that's where I personally believe corporate should never calculate. That's why I do have them here included. Right now they're hidden and I'll show them later. So uh, let's here. I come down from home. Since my office at home, that means my trip to Denville, where DoorDash has service area, is covered. So it's 11.4 miles one way, round trip 22.8 miles. It cost me about $7.11 just to actually go work for DoorDash. So I don't live in the area where I dash. Go back to map. I live in this area, and this is where I actually dash, and that is the closest. The other dashes are be Nicholasville, um, Summer, Summercast, which is about 45 miles. Nicholas is about 45 miles. So yeah, it's just not worth for me to go anywhere. This is actually the closest. So let's go. So as I receive this Walmart, it's 1.4 miles, $3. I delivered at 11:12, and base pay was $3. My round trip was $2.8. Cost was 78 cents, 87 cents, which gave me a net profit from DoorDash before tip of $2.13. So what I actually took, if I got would have gotten that ride for, and it took me for as well as for the whole round trip, 22 minutes. So if I would have run at this pay for the whole hour, I would have got $5.76. So you guys can actually see I am not going to break down every single ride. You guys can pause the video and kind of study the videos. These were double orders. So another order, I had one order, and then they gave me another order on top of that, and I accepted. So down the road, I did not show them because with a new calculation, I tried to calculate as accurate as I could. So you guys can see most deliveries on the 19th by DoorDash Pay. I was actually running broke, and part of it was because I was starting the calculation based on when I received an offer. I calculated based on um, the total mileage from where I was to the restaurant to the to the customer altogether. So this form of calculation was slightly not accurate, but at the same time, this is the form of calculation that DoorDash right now is using. I tried to adjust the numbers to make it more accurate, but was not accurate. So as you guys can see, end of the day, I was $15 upside down on the cost of the vehicle. So without the counted tip, I worked for the all day, and from DoorDash, particularly after my vehicle expense, I had to actually pay out of my pocket $15 more just to break even. That day roughly worked 11 hours and 51 minutes, driven around 287 miles. You guys can see on the 20th, the story is the same. Um, I only worked for 6 hours, driven 143 miles, and received and had to pay out of my pocket almost $2 just to break even. On the 21st, driven for 4.5 hours. Um, on the 20th and 21st, I believe that's when I started picking up my, I think even the 19th is when I tried to qualify for Top Dasher. So I started working on picking up my acceptance rate. So yes, there I was actually taking rides, deliveries that otherwise I would have never taken. Um, as you guys can see, the 21st again. On this day here, I actually did a fairly good where DoorDash actually gave me a little bit more, or at least based on maybe some things that I picked up. Um, then there's the 22nd, only driven for 2 hours. Some of these days, DoorDash would start sending me deliveries, trying to send me to Harrisburg, or sending me deliveries like for 15 miles for $3. So they would piss me off. I would get a blood pressure. My blood pressure would go out, and I would get in so bad in health shape that would actually have to stop dashing and go home because I couldn't go any further. It was just not realistic. So that's one of the other thing is DoorDash needs to realize that they're not just screwing drivers by trying to force them to take delivery that's just not worth it, but it also impacts drivers' health and can lead to some serious problems when drivers start actually ending up being hospitalized, picked up right after getting the accident because of not able to drive, but still behind the wheel and operating the vehicle, as well as other things. So DoorDash needs to consider that. And there'll be another episode where I'll be talking about that how it also impacts the customer with everything that's going on between the DoorDash and the driver, and how the driver's impacting the customer's food on the energy level. So again, so we kind of explained here again. Right here, I took a break um, because I couldn't take, and then I got the pressure under control, and I went back up, and it was still just not good. Eventually, I reached my goal with acceptance rate, and I stopped driving between the 24th and the first um, until everything aligned. So you guys can see when I started taking everything, my almost everything. I don't take non-tip orders. Even I believe I did taking it right here. And one of the things I want to talk about non-tip orders. They are very, very highly risky, and this is something that I want DoorDash to actually look into because non-tip orders are usually customers that already, for some reason, not satisfied with the service, but they still place in that order, which actually puts a driver under the risk of receiving a low rating. So when a customer gets his food, doesn't matter if it's a driver's fault, not driver's fault, they're not going to rate that delivery as a five-star rating whatsoever. They are not going to rate it all because it was better than in the past, or they'll rate it because they're pissed with the service of the company. Food is too cold because it was picked up late, and most all non-tippers, their food is not being picked up for a while because most drivers refusing to deliver without a tip. So that is an issue, and those customers, let's put it this way, I accepted that delivery, let's say 30 minutes later. That food is cold. I delivered. It's not my fault. I delivered the fast I could, the fastest I could, but because that offer came to me half hour later, that food was cold. The customer received that cold food. Whose fault is it? Driver's fault. Even though driver had no control of it. So non-tipper customers are the highest risk for drivers because when we get a low rating, we get what? Terminated, as I call it. We get our contract gets broken with DoorDash, and we no longer can drive for DoorDash. So that is the issue. Second is non-tippers are usually the ones that try that will pull the scam by stating they never received the order when they did. So that's another reason why no tip orders drivers do not take. And because if the customer says they never received the order, we immediately get put on pause. We no longer can drive and deliver until the DoorDash try to investigate. And I haven't heard a lot of success with the drivers trying to successfully prove with the delivery. Um, I'm not sure. DoorDash would be the one to answer that question the best. But when the driver gets that notice that we are suspended due to the investigation, based on what I'm hearing from drivers, it's usually permanent suspension, even though they had nothing to do with it other than delivering the food and somebody trying to have a free food. So, um, so that's kind of the story, as you guys can see. By taking lower deliveries, right here we kind of got to -9. Now, when I didn't drive, I had some opportunity to actually study a little bit more and kind of look into my graph and see issues with not proper calculations. So I actually did some adjustments to come up in October to come up and actually have more accurate calculations. And interesting part is that accurate calculation became so accurate that my mileage from what I actually drive to what is here on the sheet adds up for the day falls within 2-3% from my actually driven mileage. So I'm like, wow, that is a little amazing. So what actually difference that I made on this spreadsheet? Still the date, the time, the restaurant we're picking up the food from. Still the offer that the mileage that the offer comes out, other than just recorded, is not being calculated. The pay, it's only being recorded, is not being used part of calculations. Where on the top here, it was used part of the calculation. So what actually happens next is I put in the time that I actually arrive at the restaurant. So let's start with this one. Then time that I start a trip from the restaurant to the customer. So when I leave the restaurant. So here I can actually now calculate and see where is it. I can actually calculate and see how long I actually been at restaurant. So here we have been. I've been 2 minutes at restaurant. Then the actual mileage from restaurant to customer based on Google's map calculation. The time I arrived, I completed a delivery when I uh, take the photo of the delivery and did what we need to do as drivers with each delivery. And I came to the screen, and then at the screen I would record base pay. If there was a peak pay, and tip, and that would be the recordings. So here on the right side of all these recordings that I take, so pretty much what I do is I'll take a screenshot when an offer comes in. I'll accept the offer. When I arrive to the restaurant, I hit the arrived. I'll take a screenshot again. When I leave the restaurant and I'll hit pick up order, then I'll go and hit the navigation. I believe that's what it's called, or direction. It will open up Google's map, and I'll actually take a screenshot of that. So then I have a time when that happened. I'll be able to, at that point, be able to get mileage calculate, how long it did to get to the customer, and then when I get to the customer after completing the whole process, and get to the screen where how much actually I'm getting paid for base pay, tip, and others, and I'll take a screenshot of that. This allows me to go back when I get home and actually fill out all this form. So you guys can actually see this is a round trip. So pretty much from a restaurant, because right now we're using this calculation, no longer this calculate mileage, this mileage right here. So on a round trip, it's a 3.8 miles. Vehicle cost is $1.18. So pretty much I received 225. So my net profit based on what DoorDash paid is $1.07, and it took me 2 minutes at the restaurant. It took me the whole trip. Took me 8 minutes. And now, based on this right here, a nice report for corporate can be built. And now the corporate can actually look into and say, you know what, here is what is favorable to drivers. Here's not what's favorable to drivers. And this is how we can actually take and solve some problems. As you guys can see, I did sort through the deliveries and I did not pick up anything under $4. I pretty much picked up everything above pretty much 425. I tried to focus around 450, 475. And I picked up anything less than that, I didn't pick. But I have taken some longer trips, like 7 mile trip here, 10 mile trip here. So I did took some 8 mile trip right there as well. As we can see, the 10 mile trip on DoorDash Pay was actually a loss for me. It was a 36 cents loss. Now, if we look at others, we again the 7 miles and the 8 miles is still a loss. See, DoorDash claims that their long trips are worth being taken. But if I look and I take the real data, and you guys can see in here the real data still says that the big mileage trips are still not worth taking. They're still not covering vehicle expense. But if you guys can see, some of the smaller trips gave me some returns. And here's like we had at the per hour if I would have driven for the whole hour at the same pay. So you guys can see some of these history here. Again, 7 miles, we we're kind of at $2 if I rent for an hour, and I did rent that for half an hour. Um, Another 6 miles, 11 miles. See, that's 11 miles was a big loss for me actually. $7 upside down. Or hold on, I'm sorry. Never mind. This is actually I went back, came back, and drive it that evening. So to apologize. Um, that's the same. So another 10 miles, $1.86 loss. 7 miles, $1.36 loss. Now I want to actually bring something else into view other than the mileage still not calculated as DoorDash promises they are calculated and they spend so much of effort to achieve. But that achievement is still just I don't see it. Now, I want to actually you guys to look at the at store. And here's another thing I want to actually DoorDash to address. If I receive an order and I come to the store, and that order is not ready. Give me a minute. And that order is not ready. I should have with no penalties whatsoever. After 5 minutes, it should be a pop-up right on the screen. Do I still want to wait, or I do not want to wait? That's number one. I ran into an order with O'Charles. Uh, Not O'Charles. It was Crackle Barrel. Don't remember which order that is. Where customer orders some kind of a cake that needed to be cooked for 3 hours. And this is where I actually did went into one of the restaurants and I actually studied the restaurant app. And there is a problem where most restaurants, or I would say all restaurants, are not properly educated on using the DoorDash app on the restaurant side, and that needs to be resolved as well. And restaurant needs to be penalized when they're not properly using the app. So what actually happened is that cake that the customer ordered needed to be baked for 3 hours or prepared for 3 hours. But the time limit that's set for Crackle Barrel, I do not know what it is. It expires. So Crackle Barrels. So the DoorDash started sending drivers in to pick up this order. So some drivers set for 10, 20, 30 minutes. And you guys can imagine this lasted for 2.5 hours before I received that order. I do not know. DoorDash is probably the only one, and a restaurant, probably the only two people, places that actually know how many drivers went through trying to pick up that order and how much time. But we know that there's over 2 hours were lost of drivers' time before I got this order, and where drivers were trying to pick it up, but that was not ready. And this is actually just a crazy example, but it is a true real example because truly happened. But we see on a smaller scale happening every single day, nonstop, all that time, and nobody's willing to resolve that problem. And this is the biggest reason why drivers are not happy because we spend too much time at restaurant. Tell me, do I have to spend 24 hours at Little Caesars or 15 minutes of Fazoli's? Or 14 minutes at Little Caesar again. Let's actually scroll and look at some of these. I want actually corporate to respond to this. Or 28 minutes at the Guadalajara. That's a Mexican restaurant. Or 10 minutes at Walmart. Okay, Walmart, I probably, especially if it's express order, because sometimes we end up at the Walmart before they actually finish picking up the express order from the shelves. So on that, unless Walmart has, which I did been at Walmart at one point for 30 minutes. So least famous for 9 minutes, O'Charles for 13 or 14, or Crackle Barrel for 19, or McDonald's for 10, Penn Station for 8, Crackle Barrel again for 19. Actually, unless it's a restaurant request, I am not going to Crackle Barrel. I have right now about 5 or 6 restaurants. I am not going to go back and pick up order just because of a long period wait time. It's those deliveries just not worth it for me. 12 minutes at O'Charles, 28 minutes at O'Charles, 17 minutes at O'Charles, again 12 minutes, 16 minutes at the Big City Pizza, 18 minutes at McDonald's, and this one here at McDonald's, their bell that we need to push on the door was an issue because the battery died. So the employees never even bothered to to look out and see if there's somebody's outside at the door. So things like that need to be addressed. Again, Kalalajara. So let's go back to that Crackle Barrel order. So I received that order. I came to the restaurant and they're like, I don't know if you want to wait. It's going to be another 30 more minutes before this order is complete. And I'm like, hey, what is the story of the order? And they pretty much told me for the last 2 hours, drivers were just coming in and going out. For the last hour and a half, the drivers just coming in and going out. Some sat for a while, and she's like, you need to figure out. You need to let the DoorDash know that this is not going to be ready. So I called up the DoorDash. I actually messaged the DoorDash. Um, And I said, I have no problem delivering that order, but can you guys send me back in half an hour? So, story short is they actually suspended that order. And then half hour later, DoorDash called me and said, I'm reassigning the order back to you. Can you go and deliver the order? So in that half hour, I actually been able to deliver 2 more orders and then going back and deliver that order, apologize to the customer, made the customer happy. On my way there, I actually asked if the customer wants anything else so I can pick it up from because it was like a 13-mile or something drive. Yeah, they said so. I did pick something up at the gas station. They actually gave me cash for it, but I did went out to resolve an issue where the app messed up by telling customer it's going to be in half an hour or 45 minutes. But customer knew they'll have to wait for a long time. At least that part was good. But how many drivers left being unsatisfied because of this long wait? So, number one, this is for DoorDash, and I hope you incorporate you guys actually start talking about resolving this issue. If, first of all, uh, restaurants needs to be retrained. That means manager and employee for the shift. They all needs to be certified in the app. They all need to know how to adjust the time needed to complete that order. Also, when that order is start being packaged, uh, they hit repeat in my area. It takes between 1 minute to 5 minutes to arrive in majority of the restaurants, as long as we don't have to go to Harrisburg. That means that by the time they package the order up and put it in the bags and seal it up and all that stuff, is about enough of time for the driver to get to the restaurant. So before the employee that's packaging the DoorDash order, he goes down the list, make sure that everything is available. He doesn't have to order something because something is missing. As soon as he went down the list and everything is there, he he hits order is ready and being packaged. Which that's when the DoorDash goes out and gets a driver and has the driver arrive at the restaurant within 5 minutes. Nothing's going to happen to that food in 5 minutes. It's going to take another 1 to 3 minutes, and some places even 5 minutes just to package that food. So that's number one. Second, employee of the shift should be wearing that tablet on his hand, on his arm. I'm sorry, on his arm, not the tablet to be parked who knows where, so he can quickly respond. So that's first issue that can be resolved is right there. So manager properly trained, employee of the shift properly trained, tablet is on the employee arm at all time. There's a lot of stuff on Amazon and other places that can be ordered to hold the phone to the hand, so it's not causing him an issue of packaging, but at the same time he can quickly respond to whatever it is. Second, when the driver arrives after 5 minutes, for whatever reason that is, if he have not responded, he picked up an order, there should become a message. And this is where corporate can actually make some decisions how they want to actually play it out. But should be first question coming up on the driver's screen. That's 5 minutes up, and we are requesting restaurant for how much longer on this order. The employee that packing the order, he has an option to scroll and pick up 1, 3, 5, 7 minutes. As soon as the employee responds, then an option given to the driver that he wants to wait that X amount of extra minutes to pick up the order, or without any penalties, without counting against him, he can have a choice having that order reassigned to someone else because he'd rather go and run with another dash that actually order is ready. So that's one issue right there. That time at store, if we can resolve this time where dashers are coming in, they're picking up the order and they're getting out. Look at every single order where I spent little amount at the restaurant. Those orders were always nicely positive. Look at that. 53 cents if I ran for an hour, or we can go here. That's 19 cents of dasher top pay. So this is actually where it becomes a little bit more worth it. Again, worth it, um, worth it. I wouldn't say it's worth it big time, but but at least we're in positive. So that's one. That's a place where we can resolve the issue. Is where drivers do not waste their time at DoorDash or at a restaurant. If that can be resolved, of course, we cannot control the time it takes to get to the customer because it depends on the traffic and stuff. But second thing that we need to address the base pay. You guys do want to come up to an issue to a position where 95% of the requests are being accepted, with drivers having no reason why not to accept it, and that is base pay. So option one, and this is where I give two options. Option one is you guys keep the base pay as it is, but demand a minimum tip on each order, which means that the total amount that will come up to a dasher pay will be no less than $4.50. This will get into the range of where minimum promises as they come in is no longer 225. They're actually coming in at 450, which a lot of drivers would be acceptable. So let's say we do 250 minimum tip on any order out there. So that right now the 225 plus 250 comes up to 475. Now at 475, that delivery a lot more attractive compared to the delivery for 225. Two, customer already put in a minimum tip. So so it's no longer that customer that doesn't like to tip or the customers that are trying to take advantage. We'll still have some of those customers, but see, some of those customers will start falling away. And yes, you guys, I'm like, oh, but we need that. See, you're not going to lose a lot of customers. You're going to probably lose about 5% of customers, but you're going to get over 80% of the drivers happy because right now they're receiving a better quality deliveries. So we've resolved the pay where the pay is coming in around 450, 475 minimum uh, on deliveries, and then of course people that want to give more tip, but tip should not have an option no tip. It should be start with the minimum of 250, and then from there go up whatever other options you guys have at checkout. Customer can choose. So we covered at restaurant time. We kind of see the total time. We see return based on. But as you guys can see, deliveries that are longer should have their minimum based on mileage from restaurant should be calculated. Their minimum tip should be calculated based on um, their distance. So it starts at 250, and for every let's say mile, it's at $1. So my personal opinion is, if a customer chooses to live out in the country and 15 miles out from town, they made their choice. Why should a driver be penalized for their choice to live out there? So they made a choice being 50 miles out of the town. That means 15 plus 2, that's means 1750 is their minimum tip. That's the way I see it. So that's addressing the base pay and tip. And then I guess I'll just scroll so you guys can pause and see and study. Um, as you guys can see here, I was taking longer trips, and those longer trips were not paying well. Some of them were not paying. This one paid not bad. This one didn't pay good at all. Then then on fifth, I decided not to take long trips. And if we take away long stays, some of these were actually coming in a little bit better uh, returns. Then on the sixth, again, I started taking a little bit of everything. And you guys can see the long trips, they're still coming back, not worth it. But there we spend a little bit long at the restaurant. So, restaurant needs to get, corporate needs to resolve the issue with the restaurant's time. And you guys as corporate, you guys are bringing a lot of business to a restaurant. I do know, and I understand. You guys are also charging 20 to 30% discount from their menu to get the food. I understand that part. But again, you guys are bringing business to the restaurant, and you guys are their biggest client. That means they should treat DoorDash orders, which is drivers, corporate order, driver's orders, how you guys want to interpret. End of the day, at the highest priority, and we should not be waiting there. I had a situation with Kalajara. I'm not sure that ended up here on this screen, where I had to wait 40 minutes, 28 minutes right there. I believe this is the order. 10-3, that was a Sunday. Yep, that's the order right there. 28 minutes I had to wait at the restaurant. At about 20, I would say 2 minutes, 25 minutes in, restaurant discovers that they never even put that order in with the cooks. After I sat there and they were promising me every 5 minutes, oh, it's another couple more minutes. About 23 minutes in, as I was sitting there, they discover that they never even started that order. And stuff like that needs to be resolved. Yeah, their excuse was, oh, we are too busy. We had too many dash orders, so we thought we processed all orders. Turned out to be after they gave all orders out, and I'm still sitting down there waiting. They realize they have no orders in the kitchen left to give to dashers, but at the same time, there's a dasher left without an order. So they go back and look at the order, and they realize they never actually processed that order. Yeah, so stuff like that needs to be resolved. You guys can, pause and look at this math. And here's something that I want to bring to attention to DoorDash and to the customers and drivers actually as well. Servers at the restaurant and we as drivers, we're about running this. We are literally doing the same job, only they're doing it at the restaurant. We're doing it behind the wheel. They're servicing their customers, and we are servicing our customers from the wheel. So their expense is the energy walking around the restaurant all day long and running around. They got into the vehicle, drew to the restaurant, and drew back home. That's all of their vehicle expense is. Now we as drivers, we drive in those vehicles all day long. There's a vehicle expense, and that vehicle expense needs to be taken in seriously by customers by matching that. I see a lot of customers pay, or majority of customers pay the same amount of tip to a driver that they would actually pay at the restaurant to the waiter. But we get a lot more expense than a waiter does when it comes down to vehicle expense. So our tip needs to be, calculated into that as well. And I do see some customers do take that and they'll tip to cover that. But majority customers will tip between 10 to 15% of the total bill, and that's it. And that's about what the people tip at the restaurant. and that does not cover the vehicle expense. So that needs to be a thought through, and that's why I believe DoorDash, because in a we are waiters behind the wheel. Our service for the behind the wheel needs to be covered as well. So, what else? And here's for the drivers, and I'll tell you guys a little tip. Deliveries like I'll probably go down on the deliveries like this one right here. Oh no, not that one. Too much at the restaurant. Um, this one would be acceptable. Delivery right here, where we spend less than a mile. We spend less than 5 minutes. We here we spend 7 minutes. Pays the best when it comes down uh, to delivering those orders. So DoorDash, keep in mind the most attractive orders, and that's why I'm talking about the base pay, base minimum tip pay. Is most attractive orders are orders under the miles and where driver spends less than 5 minutes at the restaurant. Those are the most attractive orders, and those are the orders that actually drivers get to make the most amount before the tip. Any order that deviates from that is becoming a cost. That's why I believe for every mile, $1 of a tip needs to be added uh, to the minimum tip to make these orders more attractive. So let's say, like this one right here, 325, $7 an hour if you would have ran for an hour. Um, like this one right here, that means it would be 250, 350, which would have 6 minutes would have raised to about $8 an hour as well. So right now we start getting a lot more attractive calculation. Like this 3 mile order, that would have increased to 325. So I guess dollar was already added, so $2 more. That would have increased to 525. That would be a nice. So another option instead of giving that minimum $2 that I talked about, start doing dollar a mile minimum from the restaurant to customer. That would actually increase these minimum pay on the longer deliveries, on deliveries that are further than a mile, and would start making these longer deliveries more attractive. So let's here. That's a six. That'll be added $6 more. That'll be 875. Let's say 825. That would be a very nice, attractive delivery, even though had to sit at the restaurant a little bit. So yeah, I think the base pay plus minimum tip um, would would set at least the minimum at a lot more attractive price. Okay, where else we have that? Do I have anything that was 225? I don't think I took much of 225 on this. I know I'll have a lot of 225 towards the end of the month to requalify for Top Dasher. And this is where, if we can resolve the pay, we would not have to go through what we're going at the end of the month just to requalify. I'm looking, but I have not seen any very low. Base pay on here that I accepted. So those are the math. So let's now reveal, and I have two things to reveal. So here real is for the total shift. I'm sorry, for total for delivery, how much I got paid, and here's the tip. And I actually, broke down the tips based on color. So the brighter the green is, the more of a attractive tip it was. Like a $10 tip right there, nice tip. $7 tip, 8.50 tip. So you guys can see some of the $20 tip. Actually, for the history of driving, I only received two $20 tips with DoorDash. Uh, $12 tip. But that's outside of that. That's the old calc. Now, I also created here two more columns that tip included. And here's per hour with tip. That's if we ran at the same rate. Then with the tip, how much would be. So there is some nice payouts, but if you look at the average, that's with the tip and everything minus vehicle expense, $10.77. Um, hold on, how does that calculate it? So the total for the day plus the uh, extra, which is a peak pay. Then we have minus O is vehicle expense plus L is tip. And that's divided by time ran. So yeah, so that's coming up to an hourly rate of $4.79 with vehicle and everything calculated. So here was a decent $10, but here, how do is it worth to actually even get up and go to work for $4.79? Here's a decent 11, 11, 13. So as we filter, as you guys can see, as more I pick out the orders, as more decent it becomes. So as more I study and I pick up and as I'm gonna go and start picking up shorter distance, unassigned, but man, DoorDash penalizes me if I unassign. That needs to be resolved. Unassigned situation where I have to wait too long. So 9:40 and 12:03. So as I'm going forward, as I more study and start understanding what not to take, that price, that amount will increase. And I kind of have an idea what not to take right now. Now I need to understand how I calculated this. So here I calculated only, I have, so these are the numbers before vehicle expense. And this is how most drivers calculate their um, their income. They don't take any expense. They don't take their fuel. They don't get nothing, no expense at all. They take what they earned for the whole day, which is from here. This divided against the time that they driven, and this. So here's the reality for drivers out there. If you're getting an hourly rate of 17 bucks before vehicle expense, if you calculate your vehicle expense, it's going to be a lot less. 14, real number was 940. 19, real number was 13. 16, real number was 1161. 1656, real number was 1115. 1280, real number turned out 479. So drivers out there, you guys are lying to yourself. And DoorDash, you guys are lying to yourself as well, looking at those dashers numbers. Because if dashers amount with tip and everything, minus time not taking vehicle deduction, is not a true real number that uh, you guys are using as a base to calculate what is going to be the driver's base. So please look at the numbers and then look at the real. I will update the calculator that I made available in the previous video with the formula that I added to calculate, and you guys can actually go in. You guys have a database of information from each driver because we hit the button when we arrive at the restaurant. We hit the button when we leave the restaurant. We picked up the order. We when we deliver, we have in the button. So all these numbers that I have to put in manually for you guys, those numbers are already in the database. You guys also, when you guys take in the order, you guys already automatically calculate how was the distance between the restaurant and the customer. So you guys already have these numbers. So all of these are already in your database. You guys can build what I built right here. You guys can actually build using database. You guys can actually build a page where you guys can put in the driver's number ID or however you guys track us, the date, and you guys can get this kind of spreadsheet using your guys' database. All of that is in your guys' database. You guys have the pay, extra pay, tip, all of this information. Mileage, all you have to guys multiply by 2 for a round trip. Again, you guys have to look at the areas. But the more I learn, the more I discover that majority of the country is a round trip, unless you live in a huge metro area. Vehicle cost, or mid-size or large metro area. Vehicle cost, unless somebody has a junk car, and let's go back to the vehicle cost. And I'm going to mess up. Let's say somebody has a junk car that's worth $2,000, and they're suspecting out of $2,000, 25,000 monthly payment. They don't have payments. Insurance roughly is about the same for everybody. Maintenance costs, unless different areas of the country rates, maintenance costs. The maintenance, if they're having a $2,000 car, their maintenance will be a lot more expensive because more stuff will be breaking and they'll constantly will be fixing that car. Their car can, that's if they're fixing itself. If they're using the shop, that that $2,000 now, you might as well add into the monthly payments the shop average monthly shop fee into here because now their expenses is crazy. Miscellaneous per month, that if there's any extras, expenses like a car wash or something you have to regularly buy just to keep the car running and favorable for customers. Tires cost, I go with Michelin, but if you go with any other cars, you're not going to get as much mileage because of gig hustle. You're cutting life of the mileage of those tires by 40%, if not by 50. So your vehicle's expense could be even more. If you're going picking up vehicles from used tires, your even your expense becomes even more expensive based on mileage driven. Fuel cost, average day mileage driven. Our price for 1 day dropped to 330, and then was held around 20, and just recently dropped to 311, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that can be slowly dropped. So average day mileage driven, again, I average about 200 if I work full day, and I need to make a minimum of 700 just to keep my family fed and bills paid. So my average is about 225 to keep that 700. But as I am recalculating and adjusting, my mileage might drop. So let's hear an example. Even we drop the vehicle cost to $2,000. Now, if we drop the driving to 115 miles, let's say, the cost just went up per mile, and and I'm doing about 38 as a city hard driving. You could consider because we have to go and we have to go. Food is getting cold if we take our time like grandma's at the at the stoplight. So as you guys can see, even if we drop the vehicle price, the mileage we driven, the less we drive, the more expensive it gets. So 225. I doubt there is drivers doing 400 miles a day, but those would be the drivers that actually their mileage would drop. Now let's put it back to the 7,000. Um, Me driving 400 miles, my cost would be 46. Me driving now, oh, that's where the so suspectancy of the vehicle live. So that's the one thing. So now, oh, not the direction. So now with the vehicle value 7,000, 75,000, what is suspectancy of the vehicle before it starts costing me an arm and a leg to keep it running? Because you can have a vehicle run forever as long as you keep on throwing parts in it. As long as it's not rusted, you can. Let's say a vehicle can run a million miles as long as it's not rusted. That means you're gonna probably go through three, four engines on that vehicle. You're gonna go through at least three, if not more, suspensions on front and rear suspensions on the vehicles. You're gonna go through couples, geez, probably 13 to 15 sets of tires. Um, you'll replace bunch of electronics in the vehicle and all that stuff. So hey, that's we're not talking about driving a million miles on a vehicle. We're talking about using a car and getting maximum out of it before you start increasing the value of that vehicle by throwing money in, but the true real value of the vehicle is just not going up. Only just your wallet is giving emptier. So that's where it is. Because a lot of people, but why do you want to calculate? Okay, let's put it this way: you driven for 75,000 miles. That at that time, transmission is about to give out. It's causing you giving problems. You need to pay $3,000 to replace that in transmission. Um, Engines probably need to do some work around the engine. All that at that point, you kind of exhausted your vehicle. So if you for that 75,000 miles, you set aside 31 cents minus the fuel cost aside, you'll be able to go and buy another vehicle for 7,000 miles, which you'll be able to get another 75,000 miles out of the vehicle and put it and get another, continue this graph and have another vehicle to making you money. And if that vehicle that's old, that has a transmission problem, all that, you take it to a wrecking yard, they'll give you $300 for it. And that's about all you can get out of those. Honestly, second, I've driven for about a month and a half, and my vehicle inside doesn't smell so great with when you deliver food. You get a spill of Coke, you get a spill of uh, not really a spill. It's just the restaurant not so careful when they're giving you food, especially with shakes. So got to drop off here, drop off there, and all of that not turn into a nice smell. So you do not want to actually, second thing, have the vehicle run for thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles. You do want to roll the vehicle between 75 and 150, 200 miles and swap it for another vehicle. And ride out a vehicle as a full expense, and that's it. So yeah, that's the reality. You cannot really get much lower than that 31 miles. You could get maybe somebody 24, 26, dropping the vehicle. They got the vehicle really cheap. But if they got the vehicle for cheap, that's their saving. That's their earnings. We need to go by market of the vehicle price. And then of course, how much they drive is are the things that actually will calculate this number. So addressing this here is used to be addressed based on the vehicle expense. And we cannot go calculating there's no vehicle expense because there is, and there's a reason why IRS came up with 56 cents because they already looked at that, and universities that they hired looked at it from various different angles, and they came up with with a number that sounded realistic. So if you guys want to calculate based on the 56 cents, what the government believe and calculate that it's a cost per mile, then our income is even dropping more. So definitely, I invite DoorDash, study. There is a lot to study here. Drivers, study because this is what matters. Will you have enough of money to get that next vehicle when your vehicle gets to a point where it's just not worth fixing it anymore? And customers, I appreciate your time, but you can actually have a little bit better understanding that is that your food doesn't show up at your door with a snap of a finger. There is expenses involved behind here. Expenses involved on a cost of an app, which I believe DoorDash can resolve that and fix a problem really quick. Um, there's expense of a vehicle, and you can take it some anywhere between 30 and 56 cents, whatever the government amount that government calculated. And remember, that is a round trip cost. And then there also time at the restaurant, time to get to the restaurant, and then time from restaurant to your place, and then the driver has to get back to the restaurant again, time as well. So those are the times, those are those are expenses that needs to be covered in order for the driver just to make it worthwhile, continue delivering your food. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. And now a short message to DoorDash. DoorDash, look at Uber and Lyft. A couple of years back, they betrayed their drivers for quite some time. They started out, go get a lease on a vehicle. A lot of people went and got a lease. Lease ended up having a limit mileage, that included in the lease everything that was per mile or overage fee. Drivers start getting burned on that. Drivers went and start financing vehicles. Then Uber and Lyft realized that they cannot afford paying drivers those high prices, so they started cutting prices. Exactly what you guys have done a couple of months ago. You guys cut price for the drivers, and some of that price that the drivers are counting on was cover their leases, rentals, or uh, or their loan vehicles. So those that had leases no longer could afford to drive with Uber on their lease. They got stuck with a lease, not able to make money because they were only working to cover the lease and overages. A lot of drivers didn't realize, they thought they started making money until they had to turn that lease in, and ended up with a bill that was just unrealistic. Then they continued cutting the price again. That forced people that were financing their vehicles with the payment of the vehicles. They've barely been able to make money. I know a lot of people that actually lost their homes because they were not able to stay current on their homes. Marriages fell apart because they couldn't keep the family fed and keep the roof over the family's head. Eventually, a lot of those drivers fell away. Those drivers that actually learn the system, learn how to provide customer satisfaction, learn how to deal with customer problems. They had they they were just forced out. The new drivers came in. A lot of them had not had enough of experience behind the wheel. The accidents increased, which increased the insurance premium. So Uber and Lyft had to cut more prices again because now insurance is actually after them because it's not becoming worth for insurance company keep up, which led to more problems. Drivers lost faith in Uber Lyft, started walking away. Now they're short on drivers. They're, they're raising prices on pay for drivers just to get drivers back. But a lot of those drivers are not coming back because they've been screwed and they do not want to be screwed again. I'm starting to see the pattern starting here at the DoorDash. I'm starting to see drivers walking away because of various different issues and pay. A lot of drivers start realizing that it's not the $19 that they're making an hour, is the 13 that after expense, or it's the 940 after expense, or it's where is that one? 479 after expense. And when those drivers start realizing that it's becoming not worthwhile, they'll start walking. You guys can start getting in new drivers. Those drivers will end up running into accidents, etc. Food will not be delivered to the customer. Issues will start rising. You, I have not found where the customers can leave a feedback for DoorDash, but I have seen a YouTuber reading some of those comments, and I'll be honest, you guys are having a lot of unsatisfied customers. But all the satisfaction starts with the right pricing right here. Base pay, base pay. Base pay cannot continue at 225. Base pay has to be adjusted. If it cannot be adjusted by corporate offering from the $4 you guys receive from the driver, from the customer, then you guys need to address that with a minimum tip. And I think minimum tip with the mileage distance from restaurant to customer, mileage per dollar is gonna, as a minimum tip, would actually start resolving those issues. Drivers will start seeing increase. They might not see increase end of the day because some of those customers that have been tipping more than that dollar per mile, they'll continue tipping as it were. Then those that are tipping, but because now they'll be taking more rides because they'll not be able to break down who's a big tipper and who's actually paying a mileage per dollar per mile. So they'll start taking those rides. End of the day, the increase will not increase much, but and per vehicle, if you guys not gonna change the base, not gonna increase much here as well, or actually here, not gonna change anything as well, but There might be a little increase here and here. I don't know. Would have to be put to test. But a lot of the drivers that not clearly understand how to calculate properly to achieve these numbers, they'll be looking at these numbers here, and we might actually see a little behavior. But if you guys want to keep the good drivers, you guys will need to focus on to address these numbers right here. That's the actually all this right here. So the base pay has to be somehow addressed, and hourly hourly pay be after expenses and hourly pay before expenses. I wish I had the access to the data you guys have. I'll do, and then manipulating that data and playing with the numbers, that would actually make some interesting results and see possibilities. So, thank you to customers, drivers, and DoorDash corporate for watching the video. I recommend you guys study the information, build your information, which honestly, if you guys have a good HTML programmer, he can build you guys this page where you guys can fill in the driver's information, the driver's ID, and then pick up the date. And you guys be able to get all this, and he can probably build that in 2 to 6 hours, depends on the guy's skills. So what I'm showing here is you guys can actually achieve all that because you guys have all that information recorded into your guys' database. So I wish everybody blessings and hope where, like for me, in order for me to make the $3,000 a month at average about we seen about $13, I have to work 240 hours. That's divided by 4.3 weeks in a month. I have to work 53 hours. That's on average. And jeez, that's 12, 9, 13, 11. See, that is not even accurate, that calculation. So average is about 11 hours, $11, $10. So let's redo this. 3,000 divided by $11 an hour divided by 4.3 weeks in a month. 63 hours I have to drive and to catch good times F60. So pretty much I have to drive about 65 to 70 hours a week just to make a decent $3,000 a month income before expenses and taxes. I'm sorry, before taxes. That, and a driver should be able to make that in about 40, 45 hours, not 65, 70 hours. So be blessed, and I'll have another video sometime in the next 2, 3 weeks. I do work a lot, as you guys can see. I have to work a lot, and I do not have time end of the day. And with my health issues, I also, when I stress, I have to sleep a lot, and sometimes All I all it feels I'm doing is just driving and sleeping, driving and sleeping. Take care.